Hi, this is me, Natty, your natural fertility coach, and today I want to talk to you about your liver, estrogen, and the role of protein in your diet in making sure that you have a regular, normal menstrual cycle. So, I was doing some research, doing some digging, and I came across a study, and in this study, it showed how they were researching some mice, and they noticed that the mice had a certain function, biological function occur, depending on the amount of protein in their diet and how this affected their fertility. So before I go on into that, I want to let you know that this video is really going to help you if you're trying to conceive naturally. It's going to also help you if you are trying to regulate your menstrual cycle or ovulation cycle. And it's also going to really, really come in handy if you are doing all of this while at the same time trying to eat healthier, improve your diet, health, and lifestyle, right? So in this study, they studied mice and they were, doing whatever they were doing. And then they started to notice that the liver had the highest amount of estrogen receptor sites on it. So your womb also carries a lot of estrogen receptor sites as well. And receptor sites are basically like, sort of like gloves, I guess you can say. And then the estrogen would be like the molecule that connects into the estrogen receptor site, and then it becomes engulfed, and then it triggers the receptor to either secrete estrogen or to perform other functions in the body. So when these estrogen receptor sites are activated, they can do things like, help things to grow, help you to have a menstrual cycle, regular ovulation, and so forth, because the body is a biofeedback system. So in order to in order to menstruate regularly, you also need to ovulate regularly, and vice versa. So with this study taking place, and they noticed, okay, the liver had high amounts of estrogen receptor sites, they began to do experiments. And so they experimented on the mice and put some of the mice on a low calorie diet. And the reason why they did this is because they noticed that how the estrogen receptor sites expressed themselves actually depended on the level of dietary amino acids in the body. So when they were looking at these mice, and they were seeing that the mice with low proteins in their body were having issues with their regular menstrual cycle, or they call it the estrus cycle for animals, they said, okay, they're going to do a study. And so they start an experiment. So they started putting some of the mice on a low calorie diet. So by being on a low calorie diet, some of the mice were fed less protein. So the mice with less protein went on to have irregular menstrual cycles, or just issues regulating their cycle, because they were not producing enough of the blood hormone in order to build the uterine lining so that they could menstruate and have a regular normal cycle. So then what they did after that is that they started giving them back proteins in their diet to see if it would normalize, and it indeed normalized, right? So if you're having issues menstruating, or if you're having issues with a regular menstrual cycle, right, you might want to consider this, because especially if you're trying to go vegan or vegetarian, if you're trying to improve your health and your diet and your fertility through health, through your diet, it can be tough trying to figure out what to eat and if you're eating enough of the proper foods. But if you're a healthy vegan, this may not necessarily be a problem for you, right? But I know for a lot of women that I'm talking to, they are interested in becoming vegans and vegetarians and changing their diet and increasing more healthy whole foods in their diet. But I know from my personal experience, it was tough, okay? It was tough getting to the point of where I'm at now, where I feel like my protein is really, really, really in check. And, my diet basically has improved a lot since when I first started when I was 16 years old. And I thought that, bread and butter, well, maybe not butter, but, that was vegetarianism. So I've come a long way, and I really hope to help some of you to come a long way as well, especially when you're trying to conceive a baby, because you want to make sure that you're eating right. So what they also noticed is that the mice that they gave dietary fats to did not affect their cycle, did not increase their cycle, regulate it. And the mice that they also, when they also gave them dietary carbohydrates, this also did not help to benefit their cycle either. So the only thing that actually really helped to re-regulate their cycle was adding back the dietary amino acids or proteins into their diet. So this is really, really interesting because I do get a lot of DMs. I do get a lot of questions about, women that are not menstruating. And, I feel like your diet really, really plays an important role. Like, we already know this. These science doctors already are the people who are doing the study. They already know this. And I'll put the link for the actual study in the description because I can't really remember what journal it was written in, but it was written in some medical journal. And in this medical journal, these were their findings. But you know one thing I want to point out though is that just because you add dietary protein to your diet does not necessarily mean that this is going to benefit your fertility. If your liver is poor, sluggish, and not functioning properly in the first place, because let's face it, a lot of people who are, not getting the best foods possible, they probably are just, their liver is probably not functioning at its best either, because we live in a society that just does not promote that type of health and actually promotes, a lot of illness and disease. So, eating more protein is not necessarily going to help you increase your menstrual or regulate your menstrual cycle alone. You do got to do things. You do have to do things to sort of help your liver out, such as toning the liver, cleansing the liver, right? And again, feeding your liver the foods and the nutrients that it needs in order for it to function better. So one way to actually increase the function of your liver is through taking certain herbs, right? And the best way to, or one of the best ways to actually ensure that the the nutrients and the molecules and the benefits, the essential oils and all of these beneficial chemical compounds and properties, active properties, get to your liver where they need to go, where and do what they need to do to help to increase the fertility and all that, is to do a yoni steam, right? So in my yoni steam, I have dandelion in my yoni steam, and dandelion is actually very, very good for the liver to help to cleanse the liver. Okay, so you also don't want to get too much estrogen, because just because you eat the protein and it helps your uterine lining to build, and it triggers these estrogen hormones to stimulate and come alive and perform and function. You also don't want too much estrogen being produced in your liver because of your diet. So again, another way to cleanse these excess estrogens out of your body is through the liver, and to make sure that your liver is forming and performing at its optimal peak. Yoni steaming is really, really something good that you should do. So if you want to know how to yoni steam, because I know this is new for a lot of women, today, if you even want to know what that is, yoni steaming is vaginal steaming, and it's the therapeutic art of allowing the steam from medicinal herbs with healing properties, such as dandelion, as I've mentioned, which is a very nutritive herb, allowing the steam to carry these active compounds and these active molecules, these beneficial properties, these nutrients, literally carrying the nutrients into your tissue cells to perform tissue repair, to heal, and to cleanse toxins out of not just your womb and your reproductive tissues, but out of the body. Because, like I mentioned, the liver is not a reproductive organ, but it's still very, very necessary and essential for fertility. So, one way to do that again is through vaginal steaming, or what is now today called yoni steaming. And it's really something that I feel like all women should do. So, the take home message that I want you to remember about this story is that you're already fertile. Because in the story I told you about these mice, in the study that I told you, these mice, they went from having okay fertility, peak fertility, whatever, and then some things happened. They were fed a poor diet, and then they began to have irregular menstrual cycles, poor, like just not having them, until they replaced these things back to back into their diet. So for women who are out there thinking that you are infertile or you're suffering with, unexplained infertility, I want you to know that you're already fertile. It is some things that you can do for you to realize that and recognize that. And I know it may be hard for you to believe now, but doing certain things like I've mentioned, such as eating proper, healthy, whole food diets and womb work, such as yoni steaming or vaginal steaming, are some things that can help you. So if you want a free checklist, so that way you can know everything that you need to do to yoni steam, make sure to click the link in my description and download the free checklist that I have created for you, so that way you can know all the materials that you need, which aren't really many, but you can also know a little bit more about what vaginal steaming is or what yoni steaming is. So I am Natty or Natasha, your natural fertility coach. I help women increase their fertility naturally through many beautiful means, such as feminine self-care, mindset, and physical activities. So if you're interested in any of this, make sure to click the link in my description, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.